Hello. Why was the broom late for work? Because it overswept. Get it? Overswept. All right. Here we go. We're talking today. We've got a new index law. We're talking about negative indices. This is index law number 4. Okay. Now, I want you to find the pattern. We've talked about this previously, but let's do some of these ones first. 2 to the power of 1, hopefully you remember, is 2. Anything to the power of 1 is just itself. So if I say 2 to the power of 2, that's 2 times 2, which is 4. 2 to the power of 3 is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And then 2 to the power of 4 is 16. And I want you guys to note that we are doubling every time we go up in a power. So every time we go this way, if I was to do one more, I double 16, that will give me 32. Okay. But if I go this way, I'm going to end up halving, and then we remember the rule. What is 2 to the power of 0? So we know anything to the power of 0 is 1. But now this is where it gets slightly trickier. We're going to go into the negative indices. So you can see that my numbers go down from 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now I'm going to -1. And what is half of 1? It's actually 1/2. Okay, it's not a negative, it's still a positive number, because if I half 1, I'm left with a half. Okay, now what is half of a half? It's actually 1/4. What's half of a quarter? It's actually 1/8. And what's 2 to the -4? It's going to be 1 on 16. And so see, none of these numbers go negative just because we've got a negative power. They just get smaller and smaller, and they kind of get put into a fraction. Okay, so have this written down. Now, I'm going to rewrite some of these in a way that will start to make a bit of sense. 1/16 is the same thing as 1/2 to the power of 4. Okay, and this one's going to be 1/2 to the power of 3. This is going to be 1/2 to the power of 2. And this is going to be 1/2 to the power of 1. Now, if you can see, I'm going to try highlight these. There's a pattern here with your negative indices. If your power is -4, it kind of means, if your power is -3, it means this. If it's -2, it means this. So you can see that there's a pattern. Okay, now this is what the pattern is. Please write this down. So the rule looks like this. If I raise something to a negative power, I can rewrite it with a positive power, but I'd have to write it as a fraction, 1 over your original. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. That was very similar to what we had before. And we'll do some examples on this, but then it works the other way around as well. Is if I have a fraction with 1 over, and then at the bottom there's a negative power, that negative power now becomes a regular positive power. I know that's a lot to handle, and it looks confusing because it's all letters. So let's practice with some examples. Okay, so let's take a look. We're going to try write these using positive indices, which means I want to rewrite it normally in a fraction form, or just making sure I get rid of my negative indices. Now we have a negative indices, so I know it's going to be 1 over. And so my base is always going to remain the same. But now instead of writing to the power of -2, it's just going to be to the power of +2. And that is it. That's done. Now, there's unfortunately more than one type of example, so I'm going to keep showing you just so you can see all the different types of questions you may get. If I have a to the power of -3, that negative indice tells me it's going to be 1 over. And then my base will stay a, but my power is now not -3, it is now +3. All right, let's continue. Now, what happens if I have 3m to the -6? This is an interesting one because remember that -6 only belongs to the m. Okay, so now I've got this other number. I want you to think that the 3 will stay on top because that doesn't move, but your m goes to the bottom. because it's connected to that -6. And so now the power becomes +6. Okay. Now, if I have 3m in all brackets, can you see how the -6 relates to the whole bracket? This would mean that there's nothing out the front. So this time 1 would go up the top. And then 3m would be your base, which goes in brackets. And then my power would be 6. Okay, can you see the difference between these two? It's the difference of a bracket. So please be careful with your brackets. Okay, I think I've got a couple more. Now, these are the more complex ones that you might see. Now, taking a look at this one, the only thing that has a negative power is the Q, which means whatever's out the front is going to remain on top. But it's just the Q that moves to the bottom of a fraction, and then it becomes to the power of +2. Okay. Now, this was the other rule we were talking about. Now, I now have a fraction already where it's 1 over, but now there's a negative power here. This means I can rewrite it as my regular positive power. Okay, so again, this one's already a fraction with 1 over, and I've got a negative indice at the bottom, so I know this is just going to be 7 to the power of +3. Okay, this one here has got 4 up the top, so this is going to be a 4 because that's already on top, but the x to the -5 on the bottom will become x to the +5. Okay, because that x at the bottom becomes a positive indice. And this one here is going to be probably your last one. This is going to be the trickiest type of one that you'll see. For this one here, see how the -4 only relates with the x. So this one here, your fraction is going to remain the same. So you kind of got 2 over 5. But then your x to the power of -4, it kind of becomes like, it no longer becomes part of the bottom. So think of it this way. Your negative indice, oh my goodness. Let me try fix this, folks. Whenever you see a negative indice, if it's at the bottom of a fraction, it's now at the top. If it was at the top if it's no fraction, it is now at the bottom of a fraction. Okay, so the negative indice means it's kind of like flipping it a little bit. Okay, now this one, remember, we only move the x to the 4 because that's the -4 only relates to the x. Okay, so everything else stays as it is. Okay, have a go, have a practice, see how you go, and I'll catch you guys later. All right, bye.